Today, I just got back from the theater after watching a Super Mario Galaxy movie, and for this review to make any sense, I gotta give you the context of how I actually saw it. So for me personally, I'm not a Nintendo fan in any shape or form. I did not grow up with any of those games, and I personally disagree with a lot of decisions that the company's been taking. But I went with a couple of friends of mine who are huge Nintendo fanatics. They were extremely excited to watch this new movie, and they really adored the first one. Me, on the other hand, I thought that the first movie was basically a product placement movie. I thought that it was them kind of going through a checklist. I feel the same way as I do for the Star Wars Force Awakens movie, which is it is them proving to the population that they're able to do a good movie. It's not just, them like doing another live action like they did in the 80s. It's them also, investigating, trying to see what would interest people. For example, with the first movie, they know that there's a lot of interest in a Luigi's Mansion movie, which there are rumors that they've been working on, but also Donkey Kong wasn't really that well received because people didn't really like the Seth Rogen voice acting, hence why there is no Donkey Kong in this one. With all that said, if you look at the reviews online, they're extremely mixed. Like, I haven't seen such a big discrepancy between the reviews in forever, actually. And I think this will actually go through with how it's been from my group, because the interesting part is me, who's not a fan, who doesn't really think that the first movie's that good, I really like this one. I liked it because it felt like a genuine adventure. Like the first one, it felt like a checklist. So every 5 minutes was a different location, a different gimmick, and a lot of it was happening for tribute's sake, if you will. And here there's still some of that, but there's a direct idea, and everything happens for a reason to push the plot. Now, is a lot of it contrived? Is it a lot of it convenient? Yes, it is. But at the same time, it's based on Mario. It was never really known for its story. And that issue is still here. The story is water deep. So if you were explaining something more in depth, because, the change of medium, for example, I would say it's at the same level as the first one. It's just, it is better presented. And because of that, I also felt like the locations were way more interesting. We do visit a lot of different planets, a lot of different areas, and the visuals are even more grandiose. Like, it's flamboyant, it is spectacular. Like, on the big screen, genuinely, it's worth the cost of admission just to see how they did everything. That was truly amazing. I really adored it for that. Last thing I also really like about the movie is there's no cringe. Like the first 20 minutes of the original, I thought were extremely cringe. I rewatched the movie actually today to be able to have it fresh for this one, and I really felt like skipping through it. It was horrible. There's none of that in this new one. It really hits hard. They're skipping the world building that you saw from the original because everything has been set in stone, so now they can really branch off from that, which was really appreciated. Now, if I go to my friends who are actually huge fans, they didn't like it. They felt for the second movie the way that I felt for the original, which is that a lot of product placement, the story isn't really going anywhere. They also changed some of the lore, especially with Rosalina, so that really triggered them in the theater. They felt like there was a lot of potential that was basically unused, and especially for a movie that is called, Super Mario Galaxy, there isn't that many galaxies to begin with. And what I mean by that is more, we don't really visit that many planets. Like, we see a lot of those biomes, but Mario and the rest of the crew don't really go on those. And the planets that he does visit are more your typical, foresty teams. Like, if anything, I would say that this movie should have been called, Super Mario Odyssey and not Super Mario Galaxy, because there are a lot of scenes or references or characters that are straight ripped off from that movie. No spoilers, of course. And in terms of Galaxy, I don't know, it didn't really give me that, and for them it was even more. Like, one of them would genuinely expected it to be based on that video game primarily, and not really. Like, this is clearly Nintendo and the rest of the crew just, picking and choosing what they liked while also trying to maximize the amount of fan service and the amount of elements you can find from everywhere. And here it does, again, like the original movie, you know, there's a lot of Paper Mario stuff, there's a lot of Odyssey, you know, there's some Mario Wonders, there's some Mario Maker, you know, and the list just goes on, goes on. You know, for me, ironically, there were more references I recognized in the second movie than the first, so I guess that also was more enjoyable. You know, I recognize a lot of the music being used, I recognize a lot of the characters being used, and even other licenses that are not part of Mario, obviously spoiler free, also appear here. Some of them are actually spoiled if you go online, but in this video at least I won't really touch them. And that is also one of the reasons why I didn't like this movie as much. They felt like they were trying too hard to add as much as they could to create a lot of fan service, and at the same time you can kind of see them as creating a demo. You know, like a character from one license shows up, and then if it bombs online, and by bombs I mean if it becomes popular, well then they're gonna, you know, create a movie off of that. And obviously if the fanfare is in there, at least it's just like a 5-minute thing, you know? So that means that this movie has a lot of contrivances and conveniences because of that fact. Because they're trying to maximize as much of those elements as possible, there's a lot of things that also doesn't go anywhere. Like the biggest one that really annoyed them was the fact that in the trailers for the movie, it is kind of teased that Bowser gets a story arc. You know, he gets in prison at the end of the first movie. Here he's a miniature dude who's trying to fight through his aggressions and become, you know, a good guy of sorts. Well, the whole movie kind of gives you the feeling that it's gonna go somewhere, and then in the end, it doesn't really go the way that you're expecting it to go. So all in all, you know, very interesting thing. You know, like me, out of 10, I would say this movie is like an 8. But at the same time, I'm not the demographic here. You know, like I don't play any of the Mario games. If you watch my channel, you know I'm more into horror, right? Like I reviewed the Mortuary Assistant movie this week. I just released a video on a video game based on the witch trials of the 16th century called the Demonology. You know, so that is way more in my my line of interest. So this movie is not it. You know, happy I saw it. I do genuinely think you should go and see it. But at the same time, I kind of feel like the more that you are a fan, the more you will be disappointed. Because like the first movie, you have those, you know, drunk goggles. You know, what I mean by that is you don't know what to expect, right? So seeing the movie constantly reference itself and play with your expectations and fulfill those expectations was a new authentic thing. So we were way more forgiving towards that. But now this movie literally redoes the same. You know, like the plot is very similar. The way that it references itself and the way that it also sets up a lot of merchandise. Like one thing that kind of triggered me was that at one point in the movie, there's a character that's literally wearing pajamas with Mario on it. And he has a plushie of Mario, clearly setting up the fact that Walmart's going to be selling that at some point. And I just thought that was outrageous because normally, you know, you get like a Sony movie, but then you get like a Nissan license, you know, you get like a Nike, you get like whatever, you know. If you want a good recent example of that, watch the movie called Goat, which by the way is also really good. Back to this one here, Nintendo, you know, doing merchandising for Nintendo for its own same license is very meta, but not in a way that I appreciate. And that's kind of the extent that it gets to. You know, they were hoping that the license was going to move forward, that something was going to happen and that was going to get a lot better, and it didn't. It's just that it's graphically more interesting. You know, there's more action in this one. There's more things happening. There are more explosions. There are more set pieces, contrary to the first one, and that is why, you know, I enjoyed it more. But, you know, take that as you will. So for you watching this video, you know where you sit here, you know, because you have both extremes, and I hope that it kind of, you know, helps you decide if you're going to see this one in theaters or not, and at least know what to expect. I'm giving it a solid 8 out of 10 and a recommendation if you basically just want a good time, you know, you want something with flashy colors, and as long as you don't think too much about what's happening on screen, unlike me. But if you're able to do that, you're really gonna enjoy yourself. And with that, I hope that this review was, you know, helpful, and at least that helped you have a good idea, you know, are you actually gonna go and see it in theaters, or if you're just gonna wait it off and watch it in streaming. Thanks a lot for watching. My next big project, I believe, is gonna be Iron Lung. I'm probably gonna start recording that like tomorrow. and then we'll see from there. So please do like and subscribe. Leave a comment, like I said. I would really love to hear your thoughts on it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.